The success rate of language learners around the world is abysmal. Nearly everybody studies a second language at some point, but the number of people that speak that language well is shockingly low. And this isn't their fault, or yours if it's happened to you either. The language learning industry is backwards and confusing and focuses on the wrong things. It's not the individual learner's fault. Our mission is to fix that. The Refold method is focused on learner success and not on gimmicks like speed. We don't claim that it's going to be a super easy and cushy ride in just 15 minutes per day, because it's not. Language learning is hard, but we'll be there with you every step of the way to make sure that you're not lost. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to lay out the entire process for learning any language from zero. I'm gonna have to gloss over a lot of details, so make sure you check the links in the description for more information, and subscribe while you're down there. Start the clock. There are two primary problems with language learning as it exists today, and they're both important to understand. The traditional method of learning that you might find in schools is what we call the grammar translation method, and it's just not effective. The idea is that by learning a bunch of vocab and grammar in the language, you can translate from English into the target language. This allows you to make some very fast progress. You can start saying things on the very first day. But the problem is that it's just very mentally taxing, slow, and leads to very unnatural language. Other languages aren't just English but pronounced differently and with a different word order. They're completely different and you have to retrain how to think. Plus, trying to memorize vocabulary lists isn't going to work. Most natives know between 20 and 30,000 different words, and each of those words usually have 2 or more definitions, sometimes up to 30 depending on the context, country, or the specific social situation. And some words have super strong cultural context, or are part of idioms or other multi-word phrases. There's just too much to try to memorize. And the same goes for grammar. Even if you pass your high school Spanish classes and can conjugate all the charts perfectly, that's not really going to help you understand natives when they're using it at full speed to express their thoughts and ideas. Natives don't follow what's in the textbook. They're following what they know and going with the flow. When people dream of fluency in a second language, it usually doesn't involve mental calculations and lots of conjugation charts. They imagine being able to speak easily and fluently and confidently to express their ideas without really thinking about it. This is what we call language instinct, and this is what the Refold method is focused on. We want you to be able to use the language without conscious thought, like you're doing now. I'm saying words and they're entering your mind as meaning. There's no lag time. The second problem is how people tend to approach language learning. It's a long-term goal and people don't really realize that. This is made worse by polyglot YouTube and Duolingo marketing, which makes it seem like it'll be an easy process with a little bit of focus and some minor effort. But that's just not the case. Language learning is something that takes a long time and dedication. Language learning marketing takes advantage of this misconception and makes it sound as easy as going on a Sunday picnic. Play our little mobile game and you'll be fluent in no time, I promise. But even when people do realize how big learning a language actually is, most people haven't been taught how to approach a problem of that size. As a society, we place a lot of emphasis on motivation. It's this magic tool that'll help you if you're not getting things done. You're just not motivated. But the reality is that motivation is weak and fleeting. It will fade. It's not gonna last for years or even months. How many times have you had motivation for something for a couple hours and then it's just gone? I know that I've been bit by the motivation bug a whole bunch of times, pretty much weekly. So a huge part of the Refold method is focusing on consistency and dedication and helping you make progress even when you're not motivated. The way we at Refold approach learning a language may seem a little bit weird or backwards at first, but it's because we're avoiding those two big problems. Now, let's get back to that language instinct thing. How the hell do you build that? I just listed a whole bunch of reasons why it's a ginormous thing that should sound really scary. I actually have good news for you. Our brains are really good at that. Our brains are pattern matching machines. We're really good at subconsciously recognizing patterns and learning them. It's the reason you're so easily able to recognize faces and voices that you've seen or heard before, and why some chess grandmasters can recognize games from 50 years ago in less than a second.
It's the 24th game from Seville, obviously.
All we need is good exposure to those patterns, enough time and repetition, and we will learn them subconsciously without really trying. But you can't just douse yourself in the language and hope that you're going to learn. We need a little bit more than that. We need what's called optimal input. Input, by the way, is what we call language entering your brain, which is usually by listening or reading. The first thing is that your optimal input needs to be interesting. You kind of need to care about the language a little bit in order to learn anything. The second thing is that it needs to be comfortable. You need to not hate the process or the sound or the way that you're getting that input. Some of the reasons that classroom learning is so ineffective is that it's not interesting and can be pretty uncomfortable. And the third thing for optimal input is that it needs to be understandable. If you're not able to understand anything, you're not learning anything. But it only needs to be a little bit understandable. At the beginning, you're not going to understand much. Bits and pieces, maybe just individual words. The main ideas, the plot, you're still probably going to be missing that. But then eventually, you'll be able to pick up on whole sentences and maybe ideas and the topic of a conversation. but you might still struggle with bigger ideas. Eventually, you'll be following along with the whole plot and watching entire TV series in your new language, but some nuances might still be difficult. And then eventually, you'll understand everything. A lot like a native speaker would, nuances and everything. It can be really frustrating to get started because you know so little, but with some perseverance and dedication, you'll be understanding in no time. Something a little counterintuitive is that speaking is not something you need to build your language instinct. It can refine your instinct, but only what's already there. So we recommend avoiding speaking too early because it's not really that useful and can be super stressful, which is a bad thing because we want your learning to be comfortable. Imagine that you've never heard music before in your life. You've never heard a single song or anything. And then I ask you to learn to play the piano. You can't just sit down at the piano and start playing things and hope to learn. You don't even know what music is or sounds like or what the purpose is. You can't start learning to play something until you know what it's supposed to sound like, what good or bad music is, what you like and don't like. So you would start by listening to a lot of music and starting to figure out what it is, what the basic rules are, and how it sounds, what the vibe is. Only then can you start to learn to play the instrument. The same goes for speaking a language. If you start saying sentences without really knowing what they mean or how they should sound, it's just not going to be that useful and you won't learn much. Plus, you won't know how a conversation flows or what somebody says when they respond to you. Starting with understanding is a lot easier and leads to deeper fluency. Okay, that's enough background. Let's look at the Refold method of language learning. I have things laid out into phases, but since everyone is different, learning a different language and starting at a different point in the process, you're gonna have to make some modifications for yourself. And so we leave these open to adding your own things or changing or whatever it might be. So keep that in mind. The end goal assumption is that you want to be fluent in the language and be able to communicate with native speakers at full speed without thinking. Generally, being able to live your life in the language if you wanted to. I'm also going to put some very rough estimates of hours onto the screen in green, yellow, and red. These correspond to more or less how long it'll take for you to get to each of these phases, depending on what your target language is. Green languages have a lot of similarities with your native one, red languages are very, very different, and the yellow ones are pretty much everything else. Like I said, the phases are named after their primary focus, but you're going to be doing other things during them. I have to skip over some information because I only have not much time left. There's more information in the description if you need. In phase 1, your goal is to learn the fundamentals of the language, so basic vocabulary and patterns. You're trying to take it from gibberish into gibberish that's kind of familiar. You're going to be spending lots of time with audio and text together to build up your understanding of the language. In phase 2, you're trying to build up your slow understanding of the language. This means that you can work your way through a conversation between new native speakers, one line at a time, and generally understand with the help of tools and maybe looking up some words. Again, you'll be spending lots of time with text and audio to build up your comprehension. This is the longest stage and you can be here for what feels like forever, but it does end. Then in phase 3, we'll be focusing on turning that slower comprehension into fast comprehension or listening. You'll be spending a lot of time with just audio to train your ear and hear things in real time. This phase also takes a big chunk of time, but it's when the language can be effortlessly fun, meaning you don't need to spend a ton of brain juice in order to understand and have fun. Then in stage 4, you'll be focusing on speaking comfort, which may sound a little bit odd, but when you start speaking, you'll be able to hear all of your mistakes, which is going to be super awkward, but you'll be making super fast progress and get over this pretty quickly. And when you talk to native speakers, they'll be super impressed and say things like, "Wow, this is only your third conversation ever? You must be like a genius or something." And as a reminder, you will be doing other things during this section, not just speaking. You'll also be reading and listening and trying some writing activities as well. But your primary focus is on speaking comfort. You'll be speaking with yourself and natives if you can, and focusing on being comfortable and not worrying about your mistakes. Because in phase 5, you'll be focusing on all those mistakes that you made in phase 4. Now that you don't feel totally ridiculous, you can dive in and start to focus on the things that you can improve in the language. We primarily do this through writing and analysis of the mistakes that you make so that you don't keep making them into the future. And then phase 6 is a lot about becoming a user of the language. You're just trying to solidify all of the things that you've learned and expand your knowledge. You'll be exploring new topics, talking to new people, and generally just being comfortable with the language. And that's it. Congratulations. You've become a fluent speaker of the language. Now you're on your own to continue exploring, understanding, and deepening your own fluency. To get here though, you can't rely on motivation. If that's your whole plan, you are going to fail. Which is why we like to focus on consistency over intensity. It may be a bit weird, but going from nothing to something is actually quite hard, but going from something to a lot more is not too bad at all. So
start small. We recommend sticking to just 2 simple learning activities.
Some basic vocab learning and immersing in whatever you can that's easy and understandable. You can build up from there, but if you dive in heads first, all guns blazing, you're probably gonna burn out. And we're here to help. Make sure to join the Refold Discord server to chat with other learners and people doing the same thing as you. Or, if you're somebody that likes things laid out day by day so you don't really have to think, check out the Refold course. We made a 30-day course that puts all the information that you need into bite-sized chunks day by day, and we give you specific homework to make progress in the language that you're learning. Link below. Alright, before I wrap up this video, there are a few more things that I want to say. First, starting with understanding does work. There are thousands of learners in our communities that can tell you firsthand. And if this video has felt really fast to you, check out the description for a free PDF download of the 6 Secrets of Language Learning. It'll clear up a lot of things in more detail. Another thing that I want to say is that you should definitely connect with other learners and natives if you can. We're going through a bit of a loneliness epidemic in the world right now, and language learning is a fantastic way to make friends, whether in person or online, and they can help keep you motivated for the long term. And lastly, start today. Jump in with something easy and see how it feels. The best time to start learning a language was 5 years ago, but the second best time is right now. Have fun out there, and as always, happy immersing.
I'm here to drop some knowledge, listen up with your ears. I got a language learning method, gonna make it crystal clear. It's called Refold, the game changer, gonna blow your mind. Immerse yourself in media, fluency you will find.